Hello, thank you for joining us for our CARE community briefing on the 2024 California Hate Crime Report. My name is Laura Tinajero, and I am the Community Outreach Manager for the Central Coast with the Office of Community Awareness, Response, and Engagement, also known as CARE, here at the California Department of Justice. Before I begin, please note that closed captioning is available by selecting the More tab. It can be found in the menu bar on your screen. As part of CARE's goals to develop knowledge and awareness for DOJ resources, we launched CARE Community Briefings, which is a virtual series where you, as members of the public, are invited to learn more about a recent DOJ resource or publication and ask questions. Today, we will share with you a briefing on the Hate Crime in California 2024 report, which presents statistics on hate crimes reported by California law enforcement agencies that occurred during 2024. Here to provide more information about hate crime statistics is Allison Luneta, Program Manager for the Criminal Justice Statistics Center. Allison collects and maintains crime data for the state and has been working with law enforcement data for 20 years and has spent the last decade working with hate crime data. We will then be joined by Special Assistant Attorney General Damon Brown, who serves as AG Bonta's legal and policy advisor on civil rights and police practices. Damon will share with us the role of California Department of Justice when it comes to hate crimes. Then we will hear from Britton Lacey, who has served as the Deputy Attorney General in the Appeals, Writs, and Trials section of the Criminal Law Division at the California DOJ, and is currently the department's statewide hate crimes coordinator. And lastly, we are also joined by Dana Kaufman, Marketing and Communications Lead for the California versus Hate program. As Vice President of Social Impact Marketing at Task Force, Dana supports the Civil Rights Department in ensuring that California versus Hate program reaches diverse people across the state. After these presentations, we will give you some time for questions. Throughout the presentation, please share your questions in the Q&A box on your screen so that we can collect them and answer them after the presentation. If you shared questions in the registration form, they have been shared with our presenters who will try to address them in the presentation. Thank you for sending them our way ahead of time. If you're joining us today as a reporter or affiliated with the press, please direct your questions to agpressoffice@doj.ca.gov. Now, I will turn it over to our first presenter, Program Manager for the Criminal Justice Statistics Center, Allison Luneta. Allison, take it away.
Thank you, Laura. Thank you all for joining us today. I'm going to go over the hate crime reporting and the 2024 statistics. The presentation overview, we're going to review what a hate crime is, how law enforcement agencies report hate crimes to the department, what law enforcement's responsibilities are, what DOJ's responsibilities are, and we're going to go over a couple of hate crime caveats and understanding what reporting is and what reporting isn't. And then we're going to go through the 2024 statistics, and finally we'll end with a little tour of Open Justice. What is a hate crime? As defined by Penal Code Section 422.55, a criminal act motivated in whole or in part because of one or more of the following actual or perceived characteristics of a victim: disability, gender, nationality, race or ethnicity, religion, sexual orientation, or the association with a person or group with one or more of these actual or perceived characteristics. Let's talk a little bit about the elements of a hate crime. In order for a hate crime to be reported to the Department of Justice, the event must contain two elements. One, a criminal act or an attempted criminal act, such as murder, rape, robbery, assault, intimidation. And it must also be accompanied by a bias motivation against one of the protected characteristics previously discussed. Definition of bias is a preformed, existing negative opinion or attitude toward a particular person, group, or entity based on one of the protected characteristics. An attitude such as hatred, animosity, resentment, revulsion, contempt, unreasonable fear or paranoia, callousness, thrill-seeking, desire for social dominance, or desire for social bonding with those of one's own kind. Hate Crime Reporting Authority, California Penal Code Section 13023, mandates the Department of Justice to collect hate crime statistics and any relevant information related to those hate crimes. We are also mandated to publish the information that is obtained through the first section. The Federal Congressional Hate Crime Statistics Act is Public Law 101-275. The FBI is also mandated to collect hate crime information, and they are also mandated to publish an annual summary of the information that is obtained through the collection. Let's talk a little bit about law enforcement's responsibilities with hate crime collection and reporting. They are to investigate and identify hate crimes. They are to report those hate crimes monthly to the Department of Justice, and they work with us and our analysts to resolve any discrepancies or answer any particular questions we may have. Law enforcement is required to do a two-tiered decision-making process. The first level is typically the law enforcement officer who initially responds to the alleged hate incident crime, and the responding officer, also referred to as the first level judgment officer. They are the ones that determine whether or not there's any indication that the offender was motivated by a particular bias. If this bias indicator is identified, the officers designate the incident as a suspected bias-motivated crime and forwards the case. The second level of the decision-making process is a second-level judgment officer, an individual who is specially trained in hate crime matters. Their responsibility is to review the facts of the incident and make the final determination of whether or not a hate crime has occurred. So just to review, it takes the crime and a bias to equal a hate crime. There's a difference between hate crime and other crime is the fact that there is a bias motivation present. Things officers look for are the offender's comments, gestures, or written statements that reflect any bias, including graffiti or other symbols, differences between victims and offenders, whether actual or perceived by the offender, the perception of the victim and the witnesses to the crime. Hate crime determination, additional things that officers consider is whether or not the victim was engaged in any activity promoting his or her group or community, whether that incident coincided with any particular holiday or date of significance. Did the incident involve any organized hate groups or their members? Have there been any similar incidents in the same location or neighborhood identify possible patterns? The absence of any other motives such as economic gain, the need for a case-by-case evaluation. An offender's mistaken perception does not negate that there was a hate crime. Let's talk about this for a minute. This means that the victim does not necessarily have to possess those characteristics of the bias that the offender has been motivated to commit the crime. Let's talk a little bit about DOJ's responsibilities. We work with the law enforcement agencies to collect and review their hate crime data on a monthly basis. We compile hate crime data and submit it to the FBI, and then we publish the annual report, Hate Crime in California. In addition to those, we collect and review the actual incident reports to determine if the incident was identified and reported correctly by law enforcement. We review those incoming submissions for accuracy and completeness. We ensure data integrity of the hate crime submissions. We run quality control checks. We identify anomalies. We then work with law enforcement and provide review feedback. We ask follow-up questions, and we assist in their review and resubmissions. We also provide training. We go over law enforcement's responsibilities. their reporting timeframes, hate crime identification and determination, and then we also have a significant portion on scenario-based training. We also compile and publish the data in our annual report. We produce an interactive dashboard, contextual documents, downloadable files, and special reports. It's important to note that the information that's reported in our hate crime and the data that's posted on Open Justice is strictly a compilation of the hate crime events reported to law enforcement and then reported to DOJ. If a report is not made to law enforcement, they are not able to investigate and they are not able to report to us. The information the department publishes may look different than data published by other entities who collect data. It is important to keep this in mind when looking at the numbers produced by other entities. The DOJ numbers only reflect what the public has reported to law enforcement. If those reports are not happening, there is not a way to account for them in Department of Justice's reports. Let's talk a little bit about what does not qualify as hate crime reporting. Any act of discrimination, a hate incident that doesn't rise to the level of crime, and hate speech. These items are not considered a hate crime and are not reported under this particular collection. Now let's go a little bit deeper into what the hate crime statistics for 2024 look like. The number of reported hate crimes typically fluctuates from year to year and over time. There have been high years and low years. Here's a recap of the reported hate crimes for 2024. Over the last 10 years, reported hate crimes have increased 141.7%. Hate crimes have increased 2.7% from 1970 and 2023 to 2023 and 2024. Our reported hate crime offenses also increased 8.9% from 2,359 in 2023 to 2,568 in 2024. The number of victims of reported hate crimes increased 8.2% from 2,303 in 2023 to 2,491 in 2024. The number of suspects of reported hate crimes also increased 7.4% from 1,844 in 2023 to 1,979 in 2024. Let's talk a little bit about the difference between an event and an offense. The term event defines the occurrence where a hate crime is involved. This is the report, the information, the event is a crime report or a source document that meets the criteria for a hate crime. There may be one or more suspects involved, one or more victims targeted, and one or more offenses involved in each offense. The term offense is defined as a criminal act that are recorded as follows: murder, rape, robbery, aggravated assault, burglary, larceny, theft, motor vehicle theft, arson, simple assault, fondling, intimidation, destruction, vandalism, false pretenses, and weapons violation, as defined in the Uniform Crime Reporting, UCR, and the National Hate Crime Statistics Report. Let's take a little deeper dive and look at the racial bias events. In 2024, the overall events involving racial bias decreased 21.6% from 1,298 in 2022 to 1,017 in 2023. Anti-Black or African-American bias events fell from 518 in 2023 to 494 in 2024, which is a decrease of 4.6%. However, anti-Black or anti-African American is still the largest bias type presented in all reported hate crimes. Anti-Asian bias events fell from 125 in 2023 to 119 in 2024, a decrease of 4.8%. And anti-citizenship status bias events rose from 8 in 2023 to 16 in 2024. This slide shows an overview of the racial bias trends over the last 10 years. And I'm going to pause for a moment so you can take a look. Now we're moving on to religion bias events. The reported hate crime events involving a religious bias increased 3% from 394 in 2023 to 406 in 2024. Anti-Jewish bias events rose 289 in 2023 to 310 in 2024, an increase of 7.3%. Anti-Islamic or Muslim bias events fell from 40 in 2023 to 24 in 2024. Anti-Catholic bias events fell from 15 in 2023 to 9 in 2024, and anti-Hindu bias events rose from 7 in 2023 to 10 in 2024. Here's the overview slide, table 19 in our hate crime publication, and you can take a look at the trends over the last 10 years. Now let's move on to the sexual orientation bias events. Reported hate crime events involving a sexual orientation bias increased 12.3% from 405 in 2023 to 455 in 2024. Anti-gay male bias events rose from 231 to 251, representing an increase of 8.7%. Anti-LGBTQ plus bias events rose from 151 to 172, which is an increase of 13.9%. And anti-lesbian bias events rose from 17 to 23. Our next slide will depict table 20, which is an overview of the table of the trends between 2015 and 2024. We can talk a little bit about a gender bias events for 2024. The reported hate crime events involving a gender bias increased to 2.4% from 82 to 84. The anti-transgender bias events rose from 65 in 2023 to 73 in 2024, which represents an increase of 12.3%. Anti-gender nonconforming events fell from 11 in 2023 to 7 in 2024. And here is the table 21 from the hate crime publication displaying the trends over the last 10 years. In speaking about reported offenses in 2024, those offenses rate increased 8.9% from 2359 in 2023 to 2568 in 2024. The violent crime offenses is increased 13.7% from 1477 to 1679, and property crime offenses increased 0.5% from 792 to 796 in 2024. This is the table 23 from the report, which shows the violent crime rates over the last 10 years. And moving on to the offense trends table for the property crimes, which is table 24. The next series of slides is going to go over the total counts by county for 2024, starting with the Central Coast. I will read off the header and then I will let you guys take a look at this. And moving on to the border Inland Empire, which includes San Diego, Imperial, San Bernardino, and Riverside. And then LA and Orange counties. We're talking about Sacramento and the Central Valley. There are several counties included in this region. And these are the counties represented for Northern California. The counties listed on the right side here did not reported 0 hate crimes. And this is the table for the Bay Area. Moving on now to our Open Justice platform. This website provides data transparency that's available to the public. We have some interactive dashboards where you can apply filters to change the charts and the data presented. You can download raw data files. You can download README files, which are important. They are the descriptions of the data collection, the governing statutes, and any known data limitations, and also includes a data dictionary for each data set. You can access the annual reports, and you can access data from multiple programs within the department. This is the Open Justice website, and there are 3 navigation tabs across the top. We have the data exploration, the data portal, and resources, and we'll go a little deeper into each of those. On data exploration, you can pull up anything from adult probation to arrest, crime and clearances to do domestic violence. Once you've selected the data set you're interested in, you can click on it. Please take a minute to review the README so you understand the information that you are about to view. And then you can select all counties or a specific county, 1 year or a range of years, and then you can select either crimes, clearances, or clearance rates, and then click on Submit. You'll be presented with a data table. And if you had selected a single year, for example, this was Alameda County for 2022, it would be presented in this format. But if you select multiple years, as you can see, this one is for Alameda County for 10-year period, it'll be the same information down the left side and all of your years will span across the top. Moving on to the data portal, if you select this button, you'll be brought to the page where we call all of our downloadable data files are for you. And this is the area where you can access not just the data from the Criminal Justice Statistics Center, but also some other areas in the department. In the data portal, you can scroll down, and then this is what the hate crime section would be. And we highly encourage you to read the README, understand any of the data limitations, our statutory authority. And then you can download the summary file, and that will present a line item detail of the hate crimes represented that we have out online. Under our resources tab, if you select publications, you can navigate to the publication of your choice down the left, and then click on a particular year. In closing, it's important to understand what qualifies as a hate crime and the complex process an event goes through in the identification process. Law enforcement has specific responsibilities to identify and report hate crimes to the department, and the department has specific responsibilities to ensure the quality of the data and the data received and to publish that data. Law enforcement and DOJ can only report out on what is received in. And now I would like to introduce Damon Brown, Special Assistant Attorney General.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Damon Brown, and I am here to talk a little bit about the role that the California Department of Justice has in the overall state response to hate crimes. Attorney General Bonta, since he was appointed Attorney General and subsequently elected, has continued to reaffirm his commitment to combating hate in the Golden State. And this is a quote that just reflects the history and the rich diversity of our state and the commitment to upholding those same values of diversity and the freedom to pursue a life here in the state free of violence, harassment, and intimidation. When Attorney General Bonta was appointed Attorney General, one of his first actions was to create the Racial Justice Bureau. And this is a bureau within our Civil Rights Enforcement section that examines all of the work that the DOJ does through the lens of racial and social justice. It is responsible for a host of work throughout the department to advance civil rights. As we're here today talking about hate crimes, that is one of the primary purposes, is to take on the effects of white supremacy and hate organizations in society, wherever that may rear its head, to address implicit and explicit biasing in policing. And we provide service and technical assistance for our Racial Identity and Profiling Act board. We also provided administrative, technical, and legal assistance to the Reparations Task Force during the 2 years that it was in session, and are continuing to provide assistance to those legislators who are putting forth bills to further the recommendations outlined in that report. The Racial Justice Bureau deals with campus climate issues, and we've seen a rise in hate on college campuses over the last couple of years, and are doing all that we can to ensure that students are able to attend classes in peace and without fear of intimidation or harassment. And a lot of our police investigation and police practices work is often done in promoting best practices, issuing guidance to prosecutors and others that are going to improve public safety and that also focus on the elimination of hate crimes. That brings us to the Ralph Act, which is a civil enforcement provision in our state law that allows or protects everyone in the state to be free from violence or intimidation because of any perceived membership in any of these listed classes here. These are just examples. Others are possible, but for the most part, they tend to track the protected classes under the law. The phrase "because of" is important in determining whether there is civil liability under the Ralph Act. Because of is the threshold here. In criminal law, the bias motivation must be a substantial motivating factor. Civil is a little more amorphous, and there isn't a definitive answer, but there are several views on what constitutes the phrase "because of." Meaning that it could be the same standard as criminal, and it also could be a motivating factor amongst those that were considered when engaging in the act. There is a private right of action under Civil Code Sections 52 and 52.1 for those who have been victims of hate crimes. And the various remedies that are available are listed here, ranging from injunctive relief all the way to civil penalties and attorney's fees for pursuing the matter civilly. Allison touched a little bit about this earlier, but the DOJ tracks hate crimes that are reported by law enforcement agencies. And in order to qualify as a hate crime, the underlying act must be a crime that's committed against a person, a group, or property, and where we do have that bias motivation present based on disability, gender, nationality, race, sexual orientation, or association with a group with one of these perceived characteristics. A hate incident is an action that does not rise to the level of a crime, but could still contain that same bias motivation. So we see name calling and insults, posting of material that doesn't result in property damage. All of these would constitute hate incidents, but may not be crimes, and therefore would not be captured in the data that we're reporting back to the public. And so again, our role in fighting hate has to do with data collection, which is made public through our transparency portal, which is called Open Justice. And then the California Incident-Based Reporting System is the system that we use to report that all law enforcement agencies use to report their data to us. At the end of each year, we publish, or it's mid-year, July, we publish our annual hate crimes report that reflects the data on hate crimes collected from the prior calendar year. And again, this is part of our role that we play in hate crimes reporting. There have been some questions that came in about what some of this data may mean, if it's indicating certain trends one way or the other. Our role is just to report the data and the numbers. Certainly, there are many of you who are part of organizations, part of think tanks and other research-based organizations that will certainly draw conclusions and draw trends from the data. That is not the role that we have in this. We simply collect and report out the data as it's reported to us. And so here are some of the other ways in which we carry out our duties and functions. We conducted a series of hate crimes roundtable through our Office of Care, going up and down the state, to connect with the community, to find out what community-based organizations, law enforcement agencies, local governments all find to be effective ways in combating hate and hate crimes, sharing that information with others throughout the state, and also offering resources that we may have through the department, hearing feedback on how our department can be more effective in supplying resources and assistance to those who are in this fight against hate. We also, through our oversight of law enforcement agencies, have convened prosecutors, submitted guidance documents to assist law enforcement agencies with their prosecution and investigation of hate crimes. We've also issued guidance that provides information to law enforcement and the public on the rights of protesters, and how we can make sure that everyone's rights are protected, as they may involve issues that can, subject those participating to acts of hate. You'll hear from our hate crimes coordinator later in this presentation, Britton Lacey, who is in place to provide support to local prosecutors in their efforts to increase the number of prosecutions and convictions that take place throughout the state for hate crime offenses. We have also issued resources to victims and updated our hate crimes brochures in several different languages that are on our website. And these this information helps adds additional provisions that have changed in the law. We've also included information that will serve as a model brochure for agencies, and we'll talk a little bit about AB 449 and the new legal requirements that local law enforcement will have in complying with those provisions to make sure that every law enforcement agency has a hate crime policy that is legally compliant here in the state. around the top of the year, given the new threats to immigrant communities that were coming out of the federal administration, the Attorney General updated guidance and resources in anticipation, again, of what we anticipated could be an increase in either rhetoric and or hate acts committed against our immigrant communities. And so there are a series of documents that we'll go over in a minute that were issued then. The Attorney General has a rapid response protocol that it activates whenever there are threats and when local law enforcement may need assistance in responding to possible hate crimes throughout the state. And so that protocol has been engaged, and the department stands ready to assist when necessary for local law enforcement in the arrest, identification, and prosecution of perpetrators of these hate crimes. Here are some of the qualifying events for invoking that protocol. We see death, acts of arson, use of explosive and mass casualties. Any of those incidents would certainly trigger the response from the Department of Justice. Our hate crimes information bulletin that goes out our information bulletins that go out to law enforcement was revised in January of 2025. Again, summarizing the criminal law that applies to hate crimes and the enhancement penalties, summarizes the Ralph and the Bain Act for the civil remedies of hate crime activity, provides an overview of the statutory requirements for hate crime policies, and talks a little bit about those best practices that I mentioned earlier for investigating hate crimes. And then we also identified various experts that law enforcement can engage in prosecuting that will provide that technical assistance and enforcement. The guidance to prosecutors that we issued, again, talks about best practices for combating hate crimes and how to set up their offices in a way that allows them to fully and more robustly prosecute hate crimes as they come in. It provided resources for victims and assists in identifying indicators that can apply to sentencing enhancements and how offices should be looking at sentencing approaches. We also updated the guidance to criminal defense attorneys and prosecutors and immigration attorneys on hate crimes, specifically identifying Penal Code 1016.3, which talks about advising non-citizen defendants on the consequences of any plea that they may enter into and the immigration consequences that may come along with that. And also advising that prosecutors avoid any of those consequences in providing those plea deals to criminal defendants. Lastly, we did issue a Know Your Rights guidance that talks about the rights of victims and witnesses of hate crimes. We know that many of you are trusted messengers in your communities and can get this information out so that people can understand what their rights are and what resources are available to them. Also wanting to remind them of their rights when it comes to interactions with law enforcement, that their immigration status is not something that they're required to disclose. And then, as I mentioned earlier, our office is now tasked under AB 449 to review local and state law enforcement agencies' formal hate crimes policies for legal compliance, and to keep that information posted on our Open Justice portal so that the public is aware of the agencies that do have compliant policies on file. And we will continue to do that work and make it known to the public. I am now going to turn the stage over to our hate crimes coordinator, Britton Lacey.
Thank you, Damon. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Britton Lacey, and I have the privilege of serving as DOJ's statewide hate crimes coordinator. What does that mean? It means that I am the point person for both internal and external partners regarding the prosecution of hate crimes and how we can strengthen our response to hate. Within DOJ, I work closely with our Division of Public Rights, especially the Civil Rights Enforcement section and Police Practices section. I also work closely with the Office of CARE, the Division of Law Enforcement, and the Office of Legislative Affairs. Outside of DOJ, I engage with prosecutors, law enforcement agencies, and numerous community-based organizations. So all of this collaboration helps further DOJ's efforts to combat hate statewide. Key to combating hate incidents and hate crimes is education and training, whether for the public, for prosecutors, or for police. And to that end, as Damon mentioned, DOJ recently issued updated resources and publications. We have a law enforcement bulletin on laws prohibiting hate crimes and laws that provide for enhanced penalties specific to hate crimes. We have our hate crimes rapid response protocol for deployment of California DOJ resources. We have guidance to prosecutors specifically on hate crimes. And we recently released a Know Your Rights and Protections Under Hate Crimes Laws brochure. This updated brochure has key additions and changes, such as including the definition of a victim under the law. And increasing awareness of the definition of a victim will lead to higher reporting because community members may have been unaware that a victim is not limited to an individual, but may be, for example, a community center, educational facility, a place of worship, or a library. The brochure also includes a revised list of examples of hate incidents, which highlights amendments to the Ralph Civil Rights Act. The amendments to the Ralph Civil Rights Act expanded the definition of intimidation by threat of violence to include what is known as hate littering, which we saw as a sort of pervasive issue up and down the state. So the law has been amended to provide protections for this. The brochure also includes updated information to the What You and Your Community Can Do to Combat Hate section. This revised section provides valuable, more robust suggestions for how communities themselves can prevent hate violence and work together with law enforcement. The brochure also provides clarity on the different remedies available in criminal hate crime cases as opposed to civil hate crime cases. And it provides a general description on the difference between the two. For example, Damon mentioned the Ralph Civil Rights Act, and under that civil law, political affiliations or beliefs are protected. However, under the penal code, political beliefs or affiliations are not a protected characteristic. Importantly, the brochure contains additional information regarding immigration status rights and what police may or may not do. Specifically, peace officers in California may not detain a hate crime victim or witness who's not charged with or convicted of committing any crime under state law for any actual or suspected immigration violation and may not report or turn the individual over to federal immigration authorities. Increasing awareness of immigration rights will lead to higher reporting by victims and witnesses because it will help alleviate concerns by victims and witnesses regarding their immigration status. Lastly, the brochure updated the Where to Find Help section and provides helpful information regarding the Civil Rights Department, which you'll hear from shortly. All of these resources seek to educate and empower communities to address gaps in reporting and to increase collaboration in combating hate. In addition to assisting with these bulletins and resources, I'm a member of various anti-hate coalitions and committees. By being involved in these groups and by participating in hate crime summits, DOJ is working to better understand the concerns of California communities and staying informed regarding challenges to the reporting and prosecution of hate crimes. Lastly, in my role as hate crimes coordinator, I've been involved in 2 statewide projects just over the course of this past year that have the potential to vastly improve reporting of hate crimes, their investigation, and their prosecution. I work closely with the California District Attorneys Association and a hate crimes prosecutor to revise the hate crimes manual for deputy district attorneys throughout California. And I'm currently part of a working group assisting POST, the California Commission on Peace Officer Standards and Training, and updating their training for law enforcement on hate crimes and identification and investigation. Thanks to a diverse group of subject matter experts, this revamped training will tackle many pressing issues, such as highlighting the underreporting of anti-disability hate crimes, the importance of utilizing a supplemental hate crimes report, and engaging with the community in a way that encourages hate incident and hate crime reporting and reduces community members' fears related to reporting. Here is my contact information. Feel free to use it as often as you may like. I'll give you a moment to look at that, but this will also be available. And now it's my pleasure to turn this over to Dana Kaufman of California versus Hate.
Thank you, Britton. Excited to be here and share more information about California versus Hate. Yes, California versus Hate. What is it? It is California's non-emergency hotline and anonymous hate incident and hate crime reporting system to support individuals and communities targeted for hate anywhere within California. So I know some of the previous speakers, including Damon, called out the distinction between a hate incident and a hate crime. California versus Hate is really focused on collecting that hate incident data. People can as well report hate crimes. But the goal of this program set up under the California Civil Rights Department was to really get a better capture of the hate crimes that we know are being and hate incidents being underreported. Could be people are nervous to report to law enforcement. They may not know that something affecting them was a hate crime or a hate incident. And so this program is really about providing that kind of another pathway for us to collect that data and ensure that there are responses to hate of all kinds happening across the state. California versus Hate is led by the California Civil Rights Department, previously known as the Department of Fair Employment and Housing, which is tasked with protecting the people of California from unlawful discrimination in employment, housing, public accommodations, hate violence, and human trafficking. This program serves to support communities across the state, and there have been some questions I've seen in the chat around how we conduct our outreach to ensure the most impacted communities know they can report, and that is a core tenet of the Civil Rights Department and of California versus Hate, is on reaching the most underserved communities in California to ensure that they know there is support when they report a hate incident. So how does reporting with California versus Hate work? As mentioned, this is distinct from the hate crime reporting process with law enforcement. Anyone can report either experiencing or witnessing an act of hate, again, crime or incident, by calling 8338-NO-HATE or calling 211. And they can report online and at californiaversushate.org. I believe online is in 14 languages, and calling in through LanguageLink, people can report in over 200 languages. Once the incident is reported, they will be connected with a care coordinator, which is a program managed by the nonprofit agency 211. Who are trained in cultural competency, response to hate, and navigating the reporting landscape. And so they will then work with individual victims to ensure that they get whatever support they need. And so that could be resources including counseling, that could be free legal support, that could also mean help reporting to law enforcement. So if they are hesitant to report, again, because of previous challenges they've had with law enforcement, or they're not sure if something is a crime, the care coordinator will help them navigate that process. They will do three-way calls with law enforcement. They will work, of course, directly with the Civil Rights Department if there is a civil rights violation. And so all of this is designed as a full wraparound services to support an individual or community who has been targeted for hate, and provide them with whatever that looks like on their side. So there are 14, I believe, contracted agencies that provide direct support, as well as dozens of other partners across the state who the care coordinators can refer these individuals to, again, for those services, to become an advocate, to get to the support they need, to connect with other community members who may be experiencing something similar. The second, of course, piece of why it's important to report is to make voices heard and reclaim status. We want to make sure that we are uplifting the voices of diverse California, and that is a core tenet of the California versus Hate program, not only in driving reporting, but in celebrating and uplifting the diversity of the state, to ensure that there is a sense of welcoming for all communities, regardless of their background. And finally, of course, to improve support and resources. We know that there's underreporting happening in a number of communities, both geographically and demographically. And the California versus Hate data is meant to augment what is collected by DOJ and other reporting individual mechanisms, to build out a comprehensive picture of the state of hate within California. So how can we help inform our communities? So the California versus Hate program is very much designed to be community-centric. Again, while people may know that if something happens to them is like a clear and flagrant violation of the law and a crime, they may call 911, they may report to police. And I think that that is something that's, you know, mostly inherently understood. The ability to report a hate incident, that people may even be eligible for support is not something that's, you know, universally understood. People have been experiencing hate for a long time. And so part of our role with this program is making sure that they know that, you know, hate of no kind is tolerated and that we want to provide people with support. So we have developed social media kits, posters, customizable content, informational materials, examples of what this reporting can look like for individuals. And all of this is designed for communities to share with one another, to uplift, and to ensure that people know that support is available to them. This content is also available in over a dozen languages on our website, and through a variety of outreach mechanisms, including ethnic media, paid advertising, and community outreach. Our approach is designed to ensure that the most vulnerable communities know that there is support. So I'll quickly run through, you know, we have a social media toolkit available with a one-click post available. Very easy to help get the word out and make sure that people know there's support. Posters and print materials, anyone can order these directly from our site, free of cost, and we will ship them to you to help provide them to community members, again, especially those most impacted. And then lastly, a plug for United Against Hate Week, which I think we're going into our 8th year now, presented by the organization Not in Our Town, the City of Berkeley, LA versus Hate, and California versus Hate. This is an opportunity for communities, cities, libraries, individuals to take action within their own community. There's a great toolkit available, including California versus Hate resources, how to host meetings, how to influence local policy, to make your community more welcoming and accepting. And that is coming up again, October 19th through 25th. So feel free to reach out to us to get connected or visit unitedagainsthateweek.org. And I think that is my last thing. I will mention that we are in the process of finalizing the 2024 data for California versus Hate. So the Civil Rights Department will be releasing that data soon. And again, that is a distinct data set from what has been shared today, but provides another look into hate incidents specifically across the state. And though there's a lot of patterns that will, of course, mirror what we've seen here today. So thank you, everyone. I think we're going into Q&A, but here's my contact information if anyone wants to reach out.
Thank you, Dana. Thank you, everyone. So yeah, we're going to go ahead and move into Q&A, and I'm going to go ahead and ask a few questions that some of our participants have asked of us, and I'll direct it to, it's open to any one of you that'd like to chime in. So our first question is regarding politically motivated hate crimes. They'd like to know if we are seeing a rise in this area. Is there anyone that'd like to answer that?
I can chime in on that. As I mentioned in my presentation, there are differences between the civil laws and the penal code when it comes to whether your political beliefs or affiliations are protected. So if there are politically motivated hate crimes, It wouldn't fall under the penal code because your political beliefs are not a protected characteristic under the hate crime statutes, but your political affiliations are protected under the Ralph Civil Rights Act that Damon discussed. So there may be civil remedies for politically motivated incidents, but if it does rise to a hate crime, would have to be that bias motivation based on a protected characteristic in a crime. So Allison can correct me if I'm wrong, but we don't necessarily have data on politically motivated hate crimes because that political belief is not a protected characteristic under our hate crimes laws.
That is correct.
Thank you. And we also have a question. I think this might be for you, Allison. If you could explain a little further what anti-citizenship status means.
Sure. This bias type, it revolves around a perception that someone's national, country of origin, immigration status, citizenship, national origin, that the crime against them was committed because of the offender's perception or perceived that they have a bias against those people due to their citizenship status.
Thank you. We have another question that came in regarding hate crimes based on disability. Do we collect that data and can they find that in the report?
Yes, we do collect that data and it is throughout the report in other tables. If you want to look at the trend table, 17 would be a good place to start, but it is in multiple tables within the report.
Wonderful, thank you. And we have another question asking if the data that was presented is relying solely on law enforcement data and not on citizen data. I don't know if you would like to answer that question.
Sure. The hate crime report that the department publishes is based off of crimes reported to law enforcement and then those crimes being reported to us. So the community members report the hate crimes to law enforcement investigates. If it meets the criteria per the statutes as for a hate crime, then that is reported to us. And that is what we report out on.
Wonderful, thank you. And we have someone that asked us, what attempts are being made to reach out to impacted communities?
Yeah, I can jump in there. And I think I showed some of this, but we are definitely taking a multiple approach with California versus Hate to reach those communities most impacted by hate. And so that, as mentioned, is we partner with ethnic media. We do paid advertising in language, digital, and print. We work closely with dozens of community partner organizations as well as local governments across the state to provide them with materials and information about what constitutes a hate act and how individuals can report them and receive support services through California versus Hate. And that all, of course, ladders up to people being able to report and have their rights protected. So it is certainly a multi-pronged approach, and we are ever in need of ongoing collaboration with community partners. So anyone who is interested in deepening that collaboration, definitely reach out to me or info@cavershate.org, and we can help figure out how to support the specific communities you might be working with.
Thank you. Somebody asked where they could find the complaints filed number on the report, hate crimes report.
In the hate crimes report, table 7A, 7B, 8, and 9 talk about the prosecutorial data that we collect. So it is on the cases that are referred to the county level prosecutors, and then also the dispositions on those cases in a particular statistical year.
Thank you for that. The next question is, what are the kinds of ways that youth, schools, and communities can work to intentionally build peace as a way to counter hate with compassion and wisdom?
I can jump in with some answer there. So yeah, I think getting involved in sharing information. There are great resources available online and through community partners. So California versus Hate .org, as well as United Against Hate Week, has a number of resources directed specifically to schools and students. that can help elevate that. I also want to shout out the Stop the Hate Grants program that is run by the Department of Social Services, and that has provided grants to community organizations across the state who are working tirelessly with community members to build out hate prevention at the local level. And so I would encourage people getting engaged with those programs, many of which are collectives of organizations working to build cross-community solidarity, which of course is a big part of upending the kind of hate we're seeing. So there's definitely a lot of work being done through sister programs as discussed here.
And I'll add to that, in addition to everything Dana mentioned, the Anti-Defamation League, the ADL, also has a wealth of resources, many of which are catered specifically to schools and communities, whether it's curricula for schools, and they're a great partner in providing resources and giving presentations on these issues. So as Dana mentioned, with United Against Hate Week coming up, there's all kinds of amazing community organizations that are looking to partner with schools and workplaces to address these issues.
Thank you. And we have another question regarding, I think somebody mentioned earlier, hate littering. And somebody would like to know if you could go into a little more detail on what qualifies as hate littering.
Sure, I can address that. So there was this ongoing issue up and down the state with vitriolic pamphlets and papers that were left on people's doorsteps or their vehicles. But the way they were written, they fell under First Amendment protected speech. And so lawmakers wanting to combat this amended the Ralph Civil Rights Act. And so the amendment expanded the definition of intimidation by threat of violence to include terrorizing the owner or occupant of private property with the distribution of materials on the private property without authorization, with the purpose of terrorizing the owner or occupant of that private property. I know that's a mouthful, but it's essentially addressing this issue of placing this hateful literature on a person's private property without their consent, with that purpose of terrorizing them, intimidating them by threat of violence. So this would fall under the civil law, not the criminal law, this hate littering, because of those sort of First Amendment considerations. But it was a major step in addressing this issue, and it was great to see how this ongoing problem was addressed through legislation.
Thank you. And I think we have one more question regarding the data, this data that's collected, and I think this is a two-part question. What do we do with this data afterwards, Allison, after we collect it? I know we share it out to community. Do we do anything else with the data that we collect for this report?
We don't specifically, but there are other groups that use this data to inform policy and use it to combat hate in specific targeted areas. I know our research services has done special interest reports based off of the data. So it is used by other entities.
Wonderful. And I want to say no to this question, but if you want to answer, does California Department of Justice do grant funding? I believe the answer is no, but please correct me if I'm wrong.
I'm not aware of any.
All right. I think that is all we have for today. Thank you, Dana. Thank you, Allison. Thank you, Britt. Thank you, Damon, for sharing all of your knowledge with us. Yes, thank you so much and have a great day. I just have a couple last things I'd like to share with the rest of the participants before we enjoy the rest of our day, which is please join us for our next virtual event, Demystifying the Department of Justice, focusing on the Division of Law Enforcement. It's going to be held on September 9th at 10 a.m. You can find the registration link in the chat box, so please register before you leave today. Thank you for joining us, and please have a wonderful day. See y'all soon.